Welcome to the Welsh Wire. I'm Sheri Welsh, and we are so thrilled that you joined us today. We are going to talk about the business case for childcare, which if you hear that, you might be thinking, I really don't understand what that means. What does childcare have to do with my business and running that successfully? I think if you just stay tuned for a few minutes, you're going to find out why this should matter to you and should matter to all of us as we try to really fully restore our workforce in our places of business. So joining me today as my guests, I'm thrilled to have a couple of folks that are really experts in knowing how this works from a business standpoint and a childcare standpoint. First, I want to introduce Kristyn Buhl-Lepisto. Kristyn is the Executive Director of KC Ready Fours in Kalamazoo. Kristyn, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sheri. Happy to be here.
And also we have with us Scott Nykaza. Scott is the CEO of Kalsec in Kalamazoo. And Scott can talk with us a little bit about what this issue means to business and also about a pretty cool solution that Kalsec has come up with that's really made a difference in their organization. Scott, welcome to the Welsh Wire.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as well.
So we've talked, the three of us, a lot about this issue in various places, but for those who don't really understand what this topic is all about and what it means, let's sort of talk about the challenges right now. I think it's universally understood that we have an issue with our workforce, and that is there's not enough people to fill the open jobs we have, right? There are a lot of people, women in particular, that have gone missing out of our workforce since the start of the global pandemic in 2020. And although I think we feel for the most part like we've turned a corner and it's a new day, we're still finding ourselves in a really challenged position from a labor force standpoint. So some of the issues that we're facing right now is that going back to the pandemic, February of 2020, we know that the ratio of women that lost their jobs at that time versus men was 3 to 1. 3 women for every single man lost a job at that time of the pandemic. Now, the interesting thing is we hear a lot about the labor and the workforce recovery, right? New jobs being created, more people back to work. Here's a really frightening statistic that I think isn't well understood. There are still over 1 million women in the United States, this is as of January, over 1 million women in the United States that are still out of work as a result of pandemic-related job losses. Now, the extra interesting fact in that is when you look at men and their return to work post-pandemic, though they have recovered all of the jobs, men have recovered all of the jobs that they lost. In fact, 100,000 more men have gone back to work post-pandemic than were employed pre-pandemic. So why is it that more women are not back in the workforce? And what we've come to identify through studies such as the Marshall case, right, that we're going to look at a little bit today and talk about, we've come to identify that there's some really significant issues with childcare that are impacting women getting back to the workforce. This is Kristyn's area of responsibility and not great deep knowledge, right? Because you work a lot with preschool, high quality preschool, 3 and 4 year olds. So Kristyn, help us understand, what are those issues around childcare concerns that make it so challenging for working mothers?
Yeah, and there's been a lot of studies on this, right? If you're looking at the data for why people are leaving the workforce, if you ask men with kids under 5, 14% of them said it's because of childcare and availability and affordability. But if you ask women with kids under 5, 45% of them said that they're leaving the workforce or have left the workforce because of childcare issues. And that shows what we knew before COVID, right? Women bear the brunt of care in the United States. And then, there's other studies. Deloitte did a study showing that 80% of women said that since the pandemic, their workloads have increased. And also 2/3 of them said that also their home responsibilities have increased. So something has to give, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. We know that 88% of women, and this is according to this McKinsey research that was done on this Marshall Plan study, 88% of women with kids age 0 to 5 said that having work flexibility, predictable hours, or childcare support would make them much more likely to choose an employer. Interesting data that could really help us. Data we can't ignore, quite frankly, as we really need to build up our workforce. And anecdotally in West Michigan, we know that to hold just as true as it does anywhere else in the country. So Scott, I want to turn to you now for a second, because as finding a solution for this, Kalsec was way ahead of the curve years ago, right? I mean, you developed a really unique and successful approach to tackling that childcare issue with a program you put it in place at Kalsec several years ago. So tell us a bit about that, Scott.
Well, about 4 years ago, and I think there's probably two big reasons why we did this. And first one is the organization where I work. And we are a family-owned company. We've been here 63 years. So we have a lot of family values and our purpose statement around what we want to do for people and the planet. And we're also a B corporation. We became one about 3 years ago, which is a benefit corporation, which also describes a company using their profits to not only provide jobs and earnings for shareholders, but also what they do for employees and the community and also in the planet. So we had a great organization that was ready to step up. And then I'll say the second thing was the spark for our inspiration was the third generation of the family, Martha Todd, who's a working mom herself, and who had this idea about how much of a burden it was for women. And she approached the officers and they were met with great enthusiasm for the program. So that's how we really got started. And we have 500 employees within the company, and we have single family members. We have working moms and dads. We have both parents that work here or one parent. And so when you have working moms and dad, you just naturally think about, well, what about the kids? And for a lot of our families here, because in our lab, we have R&D people from all over the world. They speak about 8 languages. Their extended family is not somebody down the road. It's not a neighbor. It's not a mom that lives across the street. They're plane rides away from where they are. And so having a child care center that was available for them became a really important thing. And what we really know about this issue, with all the statistics there are, it really means that working moms and dad make huge sacrifices to their careers and to their pocketbooks when they try to solve this problem on their own or within the resources that are often too far short of being able to satisfy the needs they have for their families.
Yeah, so it's a difference maker to your employees, and you hear about that every day.
Yeah, and if I was to tell you what employees say about the program, I can tell you that we get such great reviews, and it's people that are looking out the window and they see their kids come by wearing boots on their way to a duck hunt or following a nature path through there. So they're really excited about that. Employees who get to eat lunch with their kids or go up there and read a book. Employees that can come to work in a timely manner, drop their kids off here because the site is at work and have to pick them up right when they leave. We're open from 6 to 6, which provides a lot of convenience. So they are so happy with that and they're so satisfied. And a big aim of the Farmhouse Child Development Center is actually to work on developing kids. And so we try to teach them how to get along, how to be problem solvers. At one time, we had 9 different languages within there, so they learn a lot about diversity. And so it's a great reward. And I'll finally say that for parents that work here or employees that work here who don't have kids in the center, they're happy to see that their colleagues are taken care of, that they can work and concentrate on their job and not have to worry about their kids or leave early or miss time off, because everybody works as a team. And so when their colleagues are taken care of because of this, they know that they're benefiting from that as well. So retention and recruiting are really big parts of the happiness we see from having such a program.
Yeah, yeah. And several years ago, we did a program. This is shortly after the farmhouse just got started. We did a program on that on the Welsh Wire. and talked about how wonderful, little did we know how wonderful it was really going to be years down the road, right? It was great when it started, innovative, really cool stuff, but wow, we had no idea what kind of impact it really could be making for such a time as this, right? And that's a great model for folks to get involved in, or to consider getting involved in, maybe in conjunction with a neighboring employer or someone in your business park, what have you, in your building. But Kristyn, there's other programs that are available too, and other unique ways that companies can approach this issue. There's a recently developed state of Michigan program called TriShare that provides a little bit more support and resources for companies that want to develop some kind of childcare options for their workforce. So can you tell us a little bit more about TriShare?
Yeah, sure. So this is something that started as a pilot. It just got sort of funded again through the state of Michigan to help reduce the cost of childcare for families, and also to help employers provide some support for employers who can't do amazing things like Scott did, right? And help, put a childcare on their campus. And what the TriShare is the cost of the childcare is shared between the family, the employer, and the state. So each pays a third. It's a huge help to families and parents. Families can still choose the provider that they want their children to attend. It just has to be a licensed provider. And so I would say if anyone, certainly in West Michigan, is interested in this, they should visit the Southwest Child Care Resources website. That's CCR4kids.org. There's a lot of information there. CCR does all the work for employers too, and it's just a really great opportunity for employers to start helping their staff with the incredible burden that is the cost of childcare.
Yeah. That is a great program with a lot of options that companies can plug into, and resources certainly to help them get started in putting together a program that really works for their workforce, their situation, and their employees, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think like, well, geez, I paid for daycare when my kids were little. Like, what is the big challenge now, right? And affordability is one of the two biggest issues that are always cited for why childcare is so challenging for parents. But if you look at it over the last 30 years, childcare costs have increased twice as fast as any other family expense. So it really is a big burden. Locally, we're talking people are paying what they would pay for in-state college tuition. And this is for a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. They didn't have 18 years to save for this expense. So it's a huge burden. And so things like the TriShare or Case Ready Forest tuition assistance or things like that can really make a big difference to keeping folks in the workforce.
Oh, they surely can. Yeah. I mean, it's not a one size fits all approach, that's for sure. And I think, some of those issues were highlighted in the McKinsey report, which they kind of called the Marshall Plan for Moms. It's really a cool report, which, by the way, I should just pause here and say that if you're interested in any of the documents that we're referencing today, more information, we will have resources available to you at the end of the show. We'll talk about how to get a hold of that. But that McKinsey report, that Marshall Plan for Moms, talked about a 4-step approach that businesses should walk through as they create a solution that works best for them, their organization, and their workforce, right? So that, the first is really to understand employee needs, because, the needs of a workforce will vary different. The needs of one family to another will vary greatly. They'll be very different. So really understand what their employees need there, and recognize, as you started to allude to also, that, one size does not fit all, right? I mean, certainly the needs of an organization that's running 3 shifts might be different than the needs of a professional blue collar office environment where it's just an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And Scott and Kristyn, you might be able to weigh in a little bit here too with some of your experience in trying to customize. Scott, you talked about being open 6 to 6, for example, to meet the needs of everybody.
We do have people that get dropped off early and start their shift earlier. So they have a 7 to 3, and then we stay till 6 to help people that are working late and staying late. So that's really part of the convenience. And when you think about, if you had to drive 45 minutes to another part of town and back and forth again, it just takes a lot of time out of your life to find that, if it's not really accessible to where you are and when you need it. So that was a big part of the results that we got from employee surveys that say they really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. And I know the emergency childcare too, Kristen. I mean, that's an issue for some, right? So maybe I've got a stable daycare environment covered for my children when everything is normal. But as soon as somebody gets sick, as soon as somebody needs to take a vacation, I got nothing. I got no backups, right?
Yeah, and that's a huge factor too. I mean, and that's another one of the amazing benefits that Kalsec is providing, right? Because families are looking at things like affordability, and then also like Scott was saying, how accessible is it? Is it on my way to work? Is it close to work? Is it close to my house? What am I going to do when they're closed, right? What's the backup option? How convenient is it? You know, what sort of hours does it have for my schedule? So when the employer is really helping to design some of that and solve for some of those problems, then it just becomes such a huge benefit to the family.
Yeah, yeah. The Marshall Plan also points out that you really have to design your program. If you're going to address these needs, you got to design your child care solutions, considering business factors too. So Scott, this is really your expertise here on designing options that meet the company's operational and financial needs. I mean, you spoke a little bit about being a B corporation. This fits perfectly.
You know, I could tell you selfishly, I mean, just for the health of the company, the profitability of the company. So employees do seek us out when they work here. And I always tell this story. I was really amused by it. So I get a note one day from a woman in Georgia who's a single mom, and she tells me she's a single mom. She's an aeronautical engineer. And she wonders if we do that kind of work because she's looking for a place to work where there's childcare on the campus. We're a food ingredient company, and I write her back and say, we're not there yet, but if we do get there, we'll write you back. But I think people seek this out. So it is an advantage when you're recruiting people, and when everything is equal, and rarely is, people will choose an option that gives them the most satisfaction and a chance to advance their career. So employees can get developed, they can participate in more things because their childcare worries are taken care of. The affordability of it, I can tell you that we subsidize it. So we do ask employees who take advantage of it to pay something. If you're a highly compensated employee here, you pay nearly the full amount. And if you're an employee who has a job that doesn't pay as much as another one that has more responsibility, you get subsidized more. So there's a sliding scale. So that makes it affordable for everybody. The other thing I'm really most proud of, the people that work in the child care center are employees of Kalsec. They get beyond minimum wage, they get benefits, they get 401ks. And you think about, now I know I'm sounding like I'm running for office, but you think about a country where every public employee in every state is either a football coach or a basketball coach. They're the highest paid employee. Then you think about what we pay the people that raise our children and ask those people to make sure they learn all the lessons and get an education and get a great start, which is so important in those early years. And then to pay them below that is just such a disadvantage in that. So it takes a special person to have that kind of patience and understanding. And so we feel like they should get the same benefits, health benefits and 401ks, and we should take that on as part of what we do. Now, the other advantages it has from a business, we bring a lot of customers through here that are buying our products, and they all have corporate social responsibility programs. They have a consuming public that is more interested in carbon footprint and things you do in the community and that. And so when they see the Child Development Center, as well as other things we do here, they're more inclined to do business with us because they see the kind of organization we are. So it has been just, it's great for retention. It's great for recruiting. I think we have an advantage over others. And I always say this, I was raised by two daughters who taught me a lot about these sorts of things. I got asked this question. We did give an open house through the Child Development Center, and somebody said, what is the one wish you have now that you have a Child Development Center? And it didn't take me long to answer, and I thought about it. And what I had really wished for was that my mother had something like this, because women in the workplace take on most of the responsibility, almost all of it. And I wouldn't say my dad was not a caring father or anything, but if my mother asked him, hey, can you pick the kids up after school? He'd probably say, okay, now what school are they going to? And what's the name of the teacher?
And how do I get there?
It's such, I know, it's such a burden. And it's such a, a long outdated notion that it shouldn't be fully participated in. And so that, I hope my mother didn't have it. I hope my daughters do, because it is so important and it just makes life better. You don't really get the joys of parenthood when you're worried about, this, it's closed tomorrow, I have to take off, it's your turn. We're open, every day the company's open. So it has just meant a lot. And it's taken the whole community of Kalsec employees to really get behind it. And I started here in '99, and I thought we were going to be an IT company because maybe someone out there will remember Y2K, and that was going to, so we were hiring IT people. Now I think we're going to be a childcare company. We're going to have, we have 3 buildings now. We're going to have 50 some kids in the fall. And so it's a popular notion. It's a great recruiting tool. It helps with absenteeism because you cut down on that. You have engaged workforce, and you're doing something for those people, which I think also translates into them feeling better about what they can do. So.
Oh, it surely does. I mean, it's just been a tremendous success story. I think it's really inspirational, again, for other companies that are looking for solutions, whether they choose to go all in to the extent that you have at Kalsec and putting in their own child development center, or just try to take pieces of that or partner with someone else, or even just take away the idea that let's investigate TriShare. There is something we can do to get these million+ working moms back to work, right, in our places of business, and really create an atmosphere that's sticky, right? That women want to be in, want to stay in. It's good for the employee, it's good for the children, and it's good for our businesses too. It's like win-win all the way around. I think something you've done really effectively as well, Scott, is use that tool really to drive more attraction to your organization. Your people sing the praises, right, of how good it is to work at Kalsec and why you want to be there. So it's like a great circle that just continues to spin around.
It does take the whole organization, and I want to say that we hit a home run when we took this on, and it is it's not so challenging. You just have to put your mind to it in that, and we're happy to help other people discover what's right for them, whether it is going in combination with others, whether it's supporting the child care centers near them, giving their employees vouchers if they have trouble making the payments, trying to find emergency uses. So there's a lot of ways. I think I want to say we're not perfect either. We're still working on being the best company we can and that. So I feel good about this program. And I just hope we can help and inspire others. And we also get inspired. This community is really generous in terms of a lot of employee relationships and what they do. And so we're just took this avenue, and it's worked so well for us.
Yeah, it clearly has. You've had great success with it. And we so appreciate your willingness to share what you've done with others so they can learn from that. Because this is a challenge for so many, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. Right. There are answers out there. And again, whether it's looking at a farmhouse type of solution or looking at TriShare, reading the Marshall Plan for moms, if you want to get your hands on that and dig into that, what can we do? There are solutions out there that as business leaders, we can explore and we can solve this problem. It doesn't have to be one that really cripples us as we look to get working moms back to work. So again, let me just share with listeners, if you want more information on Casey Ready Fours and their work in this area of high quality preschool, you want to know more about the farmhouse, you want to know more about McKinsey's study and this Marshall Plan for Moms, you can go to our blog on our website, welshandassociates.net, go to podcast and blogs. You'll find the blog with all the links there. You can also email us, jobs@welshandassociates.net. We'll send you the tip sheet and all the links to follow up and get all the information you need to really explore how you can solve this problem in your own operation. Again, our guests today have been terrific. So glad you could join us. Kristyn Buhl-Lepisto from Casey Ready Fours, Scott Nykaza from Kalsec, thank you so much for your insight and expertise.
Oh, thank you for hosting us.
Thanks, Sheri.